Hello, and welcome to Forget What You Learned, a place for families to stop and reflect on the modern state of education. We empower you to challenge your own thinking about today's traditional school system and ask the question, are my kids thriving? I'm Cory Greenberg, a parent in the trenches just like you, and I chat with innovators, experts, and other parents who are changing the conversation, inspiring families to reevaluate how we define academic success. This podcast is brought to you by Pacific Preparatory and Tutor Corps, sister organizations molding education through innovative one-on-one learning for students in today's digital world. In today's episode, you'll get to hear an eye-opening conversation I had with Komal Shah, a former classroom teacher who stepped outside the system to look at it with a microscope. She found a system built around a goal of external, marketable success, rather than a student's inner fulfillment. We talk about how our institutions were actually built on the factory model, preparing our youth to assemble products or follow a scripted procedure, not to innovate and solve the problems of today's world. Now, the drumbeat of grades, test scores, acceptance to top colleges is squashing our kids' love and thirst for learning. What the heck do we do about it? Hi, everyone. Our guest today is Komal Shah, and I am so excited to have her on the podcast today. Komal is an education consultant and a thought leader, and she's on a mission to transform the world through conscious education. After Komal spent 5 years in the Teach for America program as a middle school educator, she was really left wanting more. And she wanted more for her kids, and not only her kids, but all kids. To pursue this dream, she attended the USC Marshall School of Business and she got her MBA. And then she published her book, which is called Raise Your Hand, A Call for Consciousness in Education. That was back in 2021. I've got my copy right here. Today, she leverages her passion for education, business expertise, and her personal conscious living practices. So how's that for an intro?
I mean, I always say every time I'm on a podcast, I just want someone to walk around with me at all times and just introduce me because it feels pretty good.
That's right. It's like, this is who I am. That's awesome. I would love that too, actually.
I know.
Well, this is how I want to get started is I just kind of want to hear your why. And I know you talk about that a lot in the book and the story is very compelling. Can you just tell us briefly sort of how did you end up wanting to talk about conscious education?
Wow, it is a long story for sure. But my journey in education, as you mentioned, started in TFA back in 2013. And I was a middle school math teacher up in Richmond, California. So I always say I'm a master at puberty. But I spent 2 years teaching at a traditional school and then a charter school. And I think over the span of the 5 years, I became a better math educator. But at the same time, I started questioning the education system. And to be honest, when my journey started, I really didn't think I would question it because growing up, I was a good student. And so I didn't really need to question the schooling system. And it wasn't until I was in front of over 700 kids over 5 years that I went, wait, am I truly doing good for every child? And it was kind of a deconstructing process. I also was working with a lot of students who had a lot of trauma. You know, they were growing up either in poverty, there was community violence, there was so much going on the back end. And every day for them to come into my class and me being like, hey, we have a lesson to learn about math, there was just such a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what about them as humans? What about their emotions and their feelings? And what are they bringing into the classroom right before they step in? And so that was kind of how the journey started. I didn't think it was like the word conscious at the time. I think it was something I was just working through. And I changed a lot of ways that I taught during that time as well, just to kind of bring the humanness in. And then my journey has just continued with the book as well, of just talking to educators all over the world of truly how do we make the education system more conscious. And when I say that, what I mean is, how do we build a system where children can go to school and it's more about their internal fulfillment versus their external marketable success?
Yeah, and that's a big ask. So I definitely want to kind of talk through a little bit of that today. And one of the things that you talk about in the first couple chapters of your book is sort of the history of education and
Hmm.
the factory model and all of that. And that was sort of mind blowing to me because I'd never really considered it. And in
Yeah.
terms of like where we came from and why and where we are today. So can you tell everyone else about that? It's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, of course. Well, shameless plug to read chapter 1 of my book because it definitely goes more into depth with it. But it's so fascinating because as I was doing research, education in general, the purpose of it obviously was to get young citizens to actually one buy into nationalistic kind of ideals. That actually was the purpose, like way back in the day. Um, but when the Industrial Revolution happened, basically the idea was that school was kind of like an apprenticeship. You knew that when you left school there was a certain skill set that you had to learn in order to go to a factory and do your job, and the job most likely was a skill that was you were going to have to perform every single day.
Hmm.
So there used to be one room schoolhouses, and there would be a teacher in the front, and there would be students that were sitting in desks in rows. Sound familiar? And they would be learning these skills that were going to be real and transferable the minute they walked out the door and they would enter the workforce.
Hmm.
Well, welcome to the 21st century. That is a 150-year-old model. And if I say schools, desks in rows, teacher in the front, learning a specific lesson, sounds pretty familiar. And yet, now we are part of the technology revolution. And so we have to start asking ourselves if we are valuing creativity and digital citizenship and problem solving and critical thinking. I mean, have we truly evolved in educating our youth in a different way that's going to support them in this new workforce?
Right. Like that's kind of what hit me at my core was like there really is a disconnect now because now we're not raising factory workers, we're raising Google employees. We're
Right.
raising, we want and expect our kids to think outside the box and like you said, be creative, be innovative, but our current system is not set up to teach our kids those skills.
No. And it's so fascinating too because learning is still so passive in schools. It's this idea of like, we're learning this today and this is the standard and you're going to master it by the end. And I mean, I know when I was an educator, how many times my kids would ask me, Miss Shaw, but when am I going to need this? And it was so frustrating because I was just like making up, like, well, you need it for the standardized test. You need it for the SATs. You need it because you need to apply for college. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is a 10-year-old in a classroom, and I'm bringing in this hypothetical future for them that's not real in the moment. And they have all these other things they want to learn about. And yet I can't make space for that. So to be honest, it was just a frustrating thing in general.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's such a natural thing for kids to know. They live in the moment, and if something is boring to them or doesn't speak to them, then the first question is like, why? Why do I need to know this? So it's hard when you don't have an answer and you're the one in front of the class.
I know, especially when it's like the Pythagorean theorem. You're like, yeah, you
Yep.
can just ask Siri, like,
Exactly.
do we need to know
Exactly.
this?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and yeah, with the advent of calculators, like, I mean, why do we need to do long division? It's right there at our fingertips. So, yeah. Um, the other thing that really struck me about one of the concepts you talk about in your book is the idea of success and
Mm,
how it in our current system it's really tied to external validation, not
mm,
what comes from inside of us. And it's sort of normalized that a student should associate their value right with the end result, which is like grades, which is fast forward to getting into a good college and everything. And how it sort of creates a fear of failure. Can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah. I mean, I think that's the basis of everything that I talk about. And I think the reason why I care so much is because I've had to do this in my own life.
Hmm.
Because I was messaged this growing up, where success was grades and test scores and going to college and all of these things. And once I accomplished them, I was still asking why. Like, who
Hmm.
am I? And needing so much externalized validation that kind of started getting into perfectionism and needing permission from other people in my life to make choices, to set boundaries, like just simple human things that so many of us struggle with. And I remember being like, oh my God, this started in like at a young age. This started in school,
Hmm.
where all these things are taught to me. So the unfortunate truth is that grades and test scores and so forth, they were actually meant to be benchmarks. They weren't meant to be the end outcome. But because of the pacing of how much we have to teach in such a short amount of time, they've become frequent and
Hmm.
often, and now have become messaged as that is the purpose, right? And I think there's so much pressure now in order to actually achieve those standards. And then that is associated with a sense of success. And the sad truth is, I think, is a lot of people buy into it. And I think that either it's our own experiences growing up, but then I always have to remind them, yeah, we can do this idea of success, but what are the repercussions of this, right? I mean, if we want our children to take risks, then we have to give space in class where it's okay to make mistakes on a test. It's
Right.
okay to get a bad grade because it's not a bad grade, actually. That's showing your progress towards getting better. Right. And so we've
Yeah.
made these like associations in our head, but it's completely negated the natural, curious learning process that actually exists for every child.
Right. I mean, there's so many expectations put on not just the teachers at that micro level, but the principals, the school,
Hmm.
just the system in general. And it just makes you wonder, like, what is the end goal? Is okay, so the end goal, let's say, is to get into a good four-year college, get that piece of paper, but then what? Because you also talk in your book about how what is I think you said 87% of adults are dissatisfied with their jobs, something like that. Like
Yeah.
that's, the end goal is to get a good job and to, be able to support a family and all those things, but then there's this inner world that's not hasn't been satisfied, you know?
Right. And then we're like, why is everyone going to therapy and having breakdowns? Like, this is so odd. I'm like,
Yeah.
actually, it's not odd. We were set up for this. Like, this is the these are the consequences.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you say that it's really it could be the root of the mental health crisis that's facing, I
Hmm.
guess, our youth and then in turn our adults.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was when I actually wrote that chapter, I was like, ooh, this is going to be juicy because
Yeah.
I don't think people associate school with like the mental health crisis, right?
Yeah.
Um and I think it's because, and I say this a lot too, is that education is kind of expected. It's like a
Mhm.
task list that you have to check a box off of. So like, if you never, why would you question it? It's just something you have to do.
Mhm.
But if you really look at it and think about the fact that like 29% of high school students experience apathy in high school, there has been much less enrollment in colleges because over time, if you've looked, the numbers have decreased. Just one, because of the pressure, but two, about relevance, right? Like, am I going to
Mhm.
put myself through this? Like, what's the point?
Right.
And then you're looking at 1 in 6 children in the United States, and the stat may have changed, have a mental health illness. I mean, what are we doing? But I also think we live in a world where, um, yeah, we live in a world where we're more reactionary than we are preventative. And that's the unfortunate truth. So we kind of wait till the bubble bursts.
Well, I can't lie. That's kind of where my mind went after I finished reading your book because I was like, I completely believe all of the premises that you put forth in it. But then the nagging question is, of course, like, how do we change this? How do we change it?
Yeah.
And you talk about, there are progressive models of education out there. My kids went to Montessori, and I mean, I thought that
Hmm.
was a wonderful experience for them when they were little. There's Waldorf, there's all kinds of, I
Yeah.
think what we do at Pacific Preparatory is in that category of just being different and
Hmm.
kind of honoring the whole child. But how do we change that on a systemic level, especially when you think of public education that's this like big, slow moving beast, you know?
Well, one, you can never give up. I think any institution is nearly impossible to shift. But
Hmm.
I think it can happen, but it's going to happen slowly. And I think sometimes you are not going to see it, it's not going to feel
Mm.
tangible.
Hmm.
A lot of the work that I do is going, this is our system that currently exists. Until I am able to go into policy and actually advocate for these things, like here I am, what do I do? But I also say that systems are made up of people, and if we want a system to change, the people have to change first. And so if we want a system to change, but we're still putting the college license plates on our cars, we're still hanging up our
Yeah.
diplomas, we're still encouraging our children to get A's, right? We're buying into it. Why would the system change if you buy into it?
Yeah.
Right? So, but if we have more people questioning it, more people advocating, more people saying, this is not good for my kid, less kids being enrolled in public school and going to other schools, doing homeschooling, and homeschooling has increased since the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
You have to see a shift in the dynamic in order for things to change, right? So, I think that ultimately is what I grasp onto, because with my book, as you mentioned, is such a big vision. And sometimes it can feel like, come on, Komal, this is never going to happen, you know? But it's like I have to grasp onto the fact that no, like even if you can do something in your home, that's a change. That's a pivot right then and there, right?
Yes. Yes. So what you're saying is that it really is going to be a grassroots movement that
Yeah.
starts in the home. Like just the
Hmm.
like you're saying, changing the culture of the conversations that you have with your kids and
Yeah.
around, what does success kind of look like?
Yeah, and also knowing you're going to be facing a lot of things against you through that process. And so I think for a lot of parents, I always say, just start with yourself. Just
Mhm.
reflect. What
Mhm.
was your schooling like growing up, right? What did you appreciate about it? What are you grateful for? What are you not grateful for? Did you feel seen or did you put on a mask, right? Just do that simple exercise for yourself, because that in itself is so illuminating. And then once you have awareness, right, we all know, then you can go into action and actually kind of shift things for your own kids. But unless you're able to deconstruct it yourself, it's just going to be difficult for you to actually make those changes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's funny because you hear the term SEL, like social emotional learning. It's the
Yeah.
buzzword, and schools are using it a lot. I It's interesting because I kind of asked my own kids. I was like, "What do y'all think about SEL?" And you're not going to be surprised, but they all were like, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
terrible." And just in listening to what they said and reflecting on it, I think the problem is that even the schools that are trying to implement it, if it doesn't involve that huge seismic cultural shift you're talking about, it becomes a box to check,
Yeah.
or, a teacher delivering a script, for
Hmm.
example, that doesn't feel authentic to them, then it's just kind of falling flat.
Well, this is how I compare it. If you're at work and you have a job that expects a lot of you, has really high expectations, you work overtime all the time, you're working on the weekends, and then they go, hey guys, so next week is wellness week, and we're going to
Mhm.
have a yoga instructor come in and teach yoga, and you're going to have some wellness food, and you're going to be like, seriously? Like,
Yeah.
thank you for this 1 week of wellness, but where is the actual shift in this workplace that's going to sustain me long term? And so, of course, kids are going to be like, ugh, right? Because it's coming in as a curriculum that's an add on. That's not actually the emphasis most of the time. It's not messaged that way. It's a supplement. It's during homeroom, right? It just feels flaky. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel so integrated. And I'm assuming that a lot of it doesn't go deep. because how do
Yeah.
you in that short
Yeah.
amount of time? And so there's frustration, and I get it, because if I was in a workplace and I got that yoga instructor one day, I'd be annoyed too.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Because it, like you said, it just doesn't feel authentic or genuine. And, it also makes me wonder about like the the extreme pressure that we put on our teachers. Like, I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
There's a lot asked of them, but integrating a curriculum like a good SEL curriculum really requires them to have a deep understanding of child development, of some therapeutic techniques in terms of active listening and when do I escalate this? How do I, see warning signs in my kids? And
Mhm.
to me, that's actually like a lot to ask of our teachers. What do you
Yeah.
think about
And
that?
yeah, I mean, my goal would always be that 80% was the human and 20% was achievement. But obviously, we're not in
Yeah.
that place yet, right? Unfortunately. I think that it's an impossible question to answer because I get it. I've been in the classroom and
Yeah.
I know how frustrating it is when things are asked of you. And I know for me, I did it in my classroom because I cared so much. And I completely shifted, though, the culture, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
curriculum. I shifted the culture in my classroom where you're walking in and you're not seeing math, you're seeing a feelings board because
Mhm.
that's what I cared about. So, that's how I changed it. But when you're going from professional development to learning lessons to then, teaching lessons and grading and then more professional development that doesn't feel relevant. And then they're like, hey, by the way, we're going to focus on SEL. And you have a teacher who's burnt out. I mean, the SEL first needs to be for the teacher before they can
Exactly.
even support their kids, right?
Yep.
So it's a tough thing. And I think the schools who do it well, and this is what I say with anything, start small. What's one thing you can do? But you know what? That one thing better be amazing. It will be
Mhm.
everywhere. You'll see it all over the school. You'll see it in every classroom. You'll see it by every adult. So, what if the school was like, this year, we're going to focus on psychological safety because there have been school shootings and a lot of things going on, and that's SEL. That's what we're going to focus on. But you do it well,
Mhm.
right? That's better than trying to do 30 million things in a curriculum with a teacher who doesn't have the space for that, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just asking the first thing, that we were asking the teachers to do is show up authentically for their kids, like you did in
right,
your classroom, is to just be a human, and that is SEL, but
right.
like you said, again, that's a challenge because there's so many expectations, and you starting with the feelings board in your classroom meant that was what, 5 minutes taken away from that box you had to check on the curriculum that day. So it's like asking teachers to be brave and, do substitute one thing that's really important for something else that's, those external expectations. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of times, unfortunately, the choices that are made without the teachers actually giving input, right? Like
Yeah.
even SEL curriculum, a district will adopt it
Mhm.
and then they'll tell the schools to implement it. No trainings,
Yeah.
no conversation, maybe
Yeah.
one training, right?
Yeah.
Let's buy a course and make people do an online, right? It's just that it's like change management 101. I mean, if you're going to
Mhm.
do something like this, you need to invest the money in actually making that cultural shift. So I think that's the unfortunate truth too, is that it comes down on teachers, but a lot of times they're not even part of those decisions of how to implement this in a sustainable way.
Right. Well, on that sad note, is there anything is there anything that's making you hopeful right now as survey the
Mhm.
landscape of our system? What's making you hopeful?
Yeah. Hmm. I think mental health has never been talked about more than it does now. And I think the pandemic supported with that. I think that a lot of schools, not all the schools, but some schools have really taken that to heart And I think parents have brought it up as well as a big concern for their kids. And so schools are taking it seriously. And to be honest, when I went to school, that conversation never existed. So to me, that's progress to even see that we're even talking about some of these things. I think the second thing is that I think parents are discovering more options for their kids when it comes to
Yeah.
their education. And I don't think that was ever really seen before. I think social media and things have helped as well because people have been exposed to different types of schooling, and that's super exciting.
Yep.
So I think that's a changing landscape. And I also think, at least for me, when I wrote my book, like people were in, and that's
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah.
Right? Is you right? I wrote something and put it out in the world not knowing what was going to happen, and the
Yeah.
responses I got, and globally, I mean, people in other countries were reaching out, being like, "Thank you, finally, someone's talking about this." Right?
I love
So
that. Yeah.
that to me is super hopeful that people care about this. They may not know how, I may not know how, but we're finally having these discussions and putting that out there. And I'm an idealist, but I think sometimes before the how, we have to spend 10 years digging into the why.
I agree with you. I think every big cultural shift in our country has happened that way.
Yeah.
It's just first we got to be aware of it, and then it's going to take a minute, but we got to fix it.
Yeah.
So, what's next for you? What are you working on?
Mm.
What do we need to know?
So I have a new podcast as well. It's called The Parent Classroom, and I'm super excited about it because it's to support parents to navigate the K through 12 schooling system consciously. And so I'm just excited to kind of put my wisdom out there, but also provide resources for parents on how they can actually navigate this, especially when they're in a system that most of the time is unconscious.
Yeah.
So that's next for me. And I continue to also do workshops for educators around unlearning success. And I go to conferences, and I'm telling you, that is like my bread and butter because I always come out of it so energized. And when principals can come up to you and say, "Thank you, like this was so needed," we
Oh,
know we're on the right track.
that must feel amazing because those are the people you really want to hear your message. So that's
Yeah.
great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up, we're gonna try this fire round. Okay, so I
Okay.
have five five questions for you, and you just gotta go quick. Okay.
Okay.
All
Got
right.
it.
So number one is, what's your favorite education or parenting related book?
Book of Children by Osho. Super radical,
Oh,
but super illuminating.
okay. I'm gonna put that one on my list. Okay, number two. What do you do in your free time?
Ooh, I'm a Bollywood dancer, so I do a lot of Bollywood dancing on the weekends when I get a chance because that's my joy.
I love it. I love it. Okay, number three. What? Okay, this one's really hard, and I need one word. Okay, one word answer.
Oh God.
I know. What do children in this world need more of?
Freedom.
Hmm. Ooh, my kids would like your answer to that.
Are
uh,
they teenagers? They're probably like, that's the
the oldest
best.
one is 13, and yes, yes. Okay, number four is, what's your favorite like feel good song?
Oh my gosh. Um, a Whitney Houston dance with somebody for sure.
I love
Y-
that song too.
yeah.
You can't actually not dance to that song. So
Right.
exactly. Yeah. Okay, last question. This is kind of funny. If you could summon anything to your desk right now, what would it be?
Oh.
Like a magic button that could bring you anything.
Oh my gosh. I just need like a little thing that like literally like pours water into my mouth because I'm really bad at
Mhm.
drinking water.
Yep. Yep. I agree with that. It's kind of hard to do that all day, and then when you have to get up to go get it, it's not happening.
No.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for surviving the fire round. Um okay, last question. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I am both on LinkedIn and Instagram. So my
Mhm.
first thing is that if you're a parent, you should follow me on Instagram at @consultkomal. If you are an education change maker, then you can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. You just type in my name, Komal Shah, and then definitely DM me if you have questions and you want to connect and chat more.
Awesome. We will also add all of that information in the show notes so people have it.
Awesome. Yay.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Komal. I hope that everyone out here enjoyed our conversation as much as I did, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Forget What You Learned, hosted by me, Cory Greenberg. As always, our goal is to allow you to zoom out on the snapshot of your family's life and answer the question, are my kids thriving? We're here to inspire you to make those small and maybe big changes to answer yes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pacific Preparatory and Tutor Corps, sister organizations committed to educating students with an innovative and holistic approach in today's digital world. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a rating and review. See you next time.